All right. So, the T26 here looks great. We tried putting oil in it, loading it up, and put water in it, and the water leaked down past the seals around the cylinder, got into the crankcase, and spewed out the vent, and also came leaking out here. So it's time to take this apart and figure out where the water leak is from. So I am going to start by popping the cover with the float off of the water tank, just to set that aside. And I think should be able to just undo the rubber bands, drive belt bands here, and loosen a few mounting screws on the bottom here and get the engine off of the tractor frame. So that out of the way, and there is no water in that tank. Get our spark plug out of the way. That might be water in the spark plug too. So because of the way these are made, if the water is getting past the jacket and the head gasket here isn't sealing quite right, then water can go around and into the cylinder, and that would explain a lot of why we're getting water spewing out of everything. So just gonna pull the two drive belts off here, set those aside, and forgot that's right there. So just, that pops right out of there. And see, it's assembled on the back side there, so there. That's out of the way. Now, well, clever. So, tipping this back here, this piece here is just a slot for the hall sensor to slide into from the ignition module. So you can pull the motor off, and the ignition module, hall sensor, and everything can stay right on the tractor. So that's nice. And pulling the ignition module out of its seat, you can see how all that water and slop from the crankcase and the engine got everywhere very quickly. But now we have the engine out. Well, we will have to try and we'll have to be careful with this. It's very hard to get these copper head gaskets off without bending them. So we'll see what we can do about that, but as you can see, there's the cylinder liner, and somewhere on the back end of the cylinder liner is where the leak's happening. So next I am going to take the bottom end cover off, and that way we'll have access to the back side of the cylinder sleeve and be able to hopefully push it out to check the O-rings that must be leaking in there. Here's the gas tank. This is actually really super cool. It's all cast. The nipple on the bottom is cast on there. And it's cast in 2 halves and soldered on the seam like a real gas tank. It's even got a dent here to make room for a low profile design on the engine, because that bump is cast for room to put, or for the big end. And the lovely bottom end cover, it's got a threaded hole in it, so I don't know if the original design involved a cap here or some sort of filler tube, but that hole is very tiny, so I might give some thought to opening that up and putting a filler tube on it to raise the vent up where I can get at it, but that is a separate idea. Right now we have it is. There's actually a drain plug on the back of this engine, so that cap screw there was a drain plug, or is a drain plug, so you can fill the top and then there's a drain plug to drain oil out of it, which is very cute, but obviously in the tractor it's entirely and utterly inaccessible. There. The big end strap is just a brass. This is just even a cast piece, and it doesn't even look like the big end here was polished, but honestly that's not really important because there's no pressure on this side of the big end. The piston always pushes from that side, and the connecting rod pushes this way. This strap is just to hold the connecting rod in place so that it stays on the crankshaft, which means it doesn't have any forces on it. And we'll just, there we go. Make the piston fall out. There we are. Well, the piston already shows some pretty heavy scoring, vertical lines on it there, and like every one of the other engines I've had, the wrist pin is loose in there, wobbling side to side. the fact that there is already scoring evidence is not promising, but first things first, we got to get that liner out. There. And I pushed on the back side of the liner until it popped and pulled it out. Now, oh yeah, so this has happened on some of these other engines that I've gotten, and it is barely visible, I'm sure, but this liner has 2 O-rings on the back, 2 O-rings on the front, and one of these O-rings is cut up from being inserted, and so clearly the reason that it's leaking is because the O-rings got cut when it was assembled. That is just part of the risk of the way that these are assembled. Like, that's just the way the design works, and there's like literally no way to fix that problem. So it's just at this price point a thing that has to be dealt with when you get one where the O-rings get cut on assembly. When you assemble it yourself, you can have the same problems. So like, there's no flaw with this, it's just the way it is. And so I'm gonna take a minute here to see what I can come up with for replacement O-rings to put on this liner, and I will probably look into a little bit of sealant to keep the water in place and as a backup for these O-rings, because it doesn't matter if I find new O-rings if I have the same issue when I insert and I'm not as careful as I could be, or it doesn't go perfectly, then the new O-rings will get cut as well and it might just leak again. So we'll see what we can come up with. But for now, I'm gonna stop for a minute, and we'll have to take a minute to clean out all this goo from spinning up all the water in there, and then see what we can do about getting new O-rings for this so that it seals properly, and then we'll have to put it back together.